Hello, this is session 3 of Managing Life's Worries in Challenging Times. So my name is Piers Murphy. I'm a primary care social work team leader in Kildare, West Wicklow, and you're very welcome to session 3. So in today's session, I'm going to go through some of the following topics, which will be anxiety-giving situations, a goals form, a solutions form, facing your fear, maintaining progress, preventing relapse, a gains form, becoming aware there's a problem, blocks to problem solving, steps to problem solving, and a decisions form. So as you can see there, quite a lot of forms and handouts. For those of you who have contacted our primary care social work service, I can, to sign up to this program, I can arrange for these handouts to be sent out to you. If you're not signed up to the program and you're watching this video, you can probably write up these topics in your journal. Hopefully now, this is session 3, you will have had a chance through your journaling to have begun the process of managing anxiety for yourself, for life. What I'd like to do first would be maybe to recap some of the things that come up in the course. I'd like to look at this as a three-pronged approach to managing worry and anxiety. Firstly, some of the tips and techniques that I've given you in relation to relaxation. Hopefully you're practicing those, your breathing, your relaxation techniques. And that could be accompanied by physical exercise, yoga, something like that for your body, which is very, very good for your health and well-being. Secondly, will be the journaling, which hopefully you've begun to write up things and write down things in relation to techniques, things that you are thinking about in relation to how you're going to manage anxiety and what your anxieties and fears are. And thirdly, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time now looking at this, would be the approach of mindfulness. So really what I'm offering is an introduction to mindfulness. There are lots of apps that are available on your smartphone, endless ones there, or in YouTube. You can look up lots of videos on mindfulness. So just to mention a few, I suppose the app I would have on my smartphone there would be Calm, which has lots of mindfulness exercises. So the art of mindfulness, you can begin straight away just being mindful and just observing your thoughts. So I'm going to give you a really very basic introductory exercise which you can practice on your own without any apps, without any music, without anything. You can sit down. So the example I generally give people in my groups is something that we can all relate to, perhaps as children when we have time, or we remember nice summers that we may have had. I'm sure there were times when we would have lay back in a nice field of grass, looked up at a lovely sunny day and watched the clouds drifting by. As adults, sometimes we never have time to actually observe clouds moving in the skies, but as children we can always remember something like that. So if you were to sit down in a quiet space that you find for yourself at home, you can sit back, close your eyes, relax, and bring yourself to that space when you were a child, innocently looking up at the clouds, hopefully not looking directly at the sun, but watching the clouds drift by in the sky. And as you do that, you can begin to observe your thoughts and just watch your thoughts and what are your thoughts that come to you. So the biggest problem with anxiety and worry is the avoidance element of it, and the avoidance factor that we don't want to go to that place where we might have distressing thoughts. But in this exercise, you are invited to do that. So as you are relaxing and watching those clouds drift by in your mind's eye, you might see a thought come by, and we're constantly thinking. Our mind never stops thinking. One of the great things about our mind, I sometimes make the analogy, if you were to think of our mind like a radio with lots of radio stations, sometimes we get stuck on one channel that I would call Worry FM. And that preoccupies our mind all the time, because when we start thinking, we just tune into that channel. But actually, there are so many thoughts that we can observe that pass us by during the course of our day. So in this exercise, when you're being mindful, again, relaxed, looking up at the clouds, you may find that a random thought occurs to you. I wonder what my wife's doing right now, or I wonder what my children are at. These are random thoughts that occur to all of us during the day. Or what am I going to do for dinner? Or where am I going to get the money for next week? So these are all thoughts that pass through our mind. So as you're doing the exercise, watching the clouds drift, what you need to do is connect those thoughts to the movement that you're watching. So metaphorically, you're watching the clouds drift by, and if a distressing thought comes to you that you can't let go of, here is the part of the exercise that can help you with your anxiety. So if you were to imagine that child lying in the grass, looking at the clouds, having a bow and arrow, and if a distressing thought occurs to you, take out the arrow and that thought becomes the arrow. Fire that arrow into the clouds and watch it drift by. So there is a very basic, simple mindfulness exercise that I invite you to try out for yourselves on your own. And I can also perhaps put up some supplementary sessions after session 6 if you would like to observe or listen to some mindfulness exercises. I can do that. So getting back to today's session, the first topic is facing your fear. So hopefully now you are ready and prepared to face your fear. So there's nothing left but for you to put your plan into action. So some of the things to remember. Firstly, you need to always congratulate yourself each time after you've carried out your plan. It doesn't matter if it went well or if there were difficulties that you faced, because you faced your fear, and that in itself is a success. Secondly, if there were some difficulties or anxieties or anxious moments, you can learn from them. Work out what they were and what, if anything, went wrong. Because you felt anxious, it doesn't mean necessarily that something went wrong. Review your experience of the exercise, and you can do this by journaling. You may need to repeat the exercise several times, building your confidence on each occasion until the anxiety begins to subside. You may need to look again at your options for dealing with difficulties. So perhaps there's another solution that will work better for you. So a lot of trial and error involved in that. So you may have misjudged slightly and set too difficult a step. Break it down into smaller steps. Remember, this is at your own pace. You may not have been feeling very well on the day. Everyone has bad days on which they perform badly. So having reviewed the exercise, you need to decide, do I stick with my original plan, or do I make some slight adjustment in light of my experience? Remember, no matter how badly the event went, you've not failed. You've begun to face your fear and begun to learn how to cope with it. Okay, so secondly, let's have a look at maintaining progress then. So some of the points to bear in mind to help maintain your progress would be, firstly, you need to progress at the right pace for you. So there's no right or wrong way. You go at your own pace at all times. So this is different for each person. The level of anxiety should never be more than you feel is manageable at any one time. So work only on one goal at any one time. Always work on the least anxiety-giving situation or step until you feel reasonably comfortable that you can achieve what you want to achieve. Then you move on to the next situation or step as you feel appropriate. So you've been taught a wide selection of tactics, hopefully through this program and these sessions. Not everyone will be useful in every situation for you, so you need to plan which tactics you're going to use for each situation. The involvement of a friend or a family member, somebody that you trust, is really useful as well at the early stages if you want to involve a family member or somebody else with you. Later you can continue to give encouragement and support to each other. But don't forget, you're working towards being independent yourself. So there will be bad days and there will be setbacks or relapse in your feelings of anxiety. Maintaining progress means being committed and giving this program, these sessions, high priority. So remember, practice the exercises that you're seeing or you're given through the handouts and learn from your setbacks. So I've mentioned relapse, so preventing relapse. So what is relapse? It's a serious return of former anxiety levels that you've managed to overcome above the normal up and down that occurs normally in recovery. And this occurs for a number of reasons. So some of the reasons, you need to build in relapse into your program and into your goals. So Some of the reasons might be irregular practice of the techniques you've learned. I know in life it's always difficult to find time to do things, so you may lapse, you may come back to it, so that could be one reason. You may be exposed to new external stressors. So life brings its ups and downs all the time. So something might throw you. You might have another stressor in your life. You might have an unrealistic expectation that all stress will disappear. And that's not going to happen because we don't know what stress will come upon us. You may feel vulnerable to stress because of a lack of a healthy lifestyle. So other factors that we look at in forthcoming sessions might be around building up a healthy lifestyle as well. You may be vulnerable to stress because of physical illness. So something might hit you, a physical illness could hit you. So if you have doubts about any of this, or you feel that there's something wrong with you, always consult with your doctor or GP for an assessment if you're not feeling physically or medically up for things. You may feel vulnerable to stress because of low self-esteem. So a lack of confidence and an ability to be assertive can lead to stress in itself, and one of the areas we will look at in the forthcoming sessions will be around communicating and becoming more assertive. You may find that stopping your practice anxiety reducing techniques too soon. So you may find that you're doing brilliant and then all of a sudden stop some of the exercises, and that can itself can cause relapse. So remember, this is a marathon, it's not a short sprint. You need to build in these little exercises into your everyday life. The techniques should become your coping mechanisms and tactics for the rest of your life. So stop taking, so in relation to medication, that could be a problem. Again, you need to consult with your GP. I always advise never stop taking anti-anxiety medication until you've consulted with your GP and you have a program in place medically with your GP in relation to that. Okay. You may attempt to overcome the problem situation too quickly. Again, that's around pacing. There may be a return to some negative or faulty thinking patterns, and that will all be part of your recovery. Depression. So frequently anxiety and depression are linked. If the depression persists or becomes overwhelming, or you feel hopeless or desperate, you need to seek professional help. So medication, counselling, or a combination of these, again, through your GP services. A fear of change that is occurring and a need to ensure that your dependency needs are met. So that may become a problem for you. So it's important to understand why you're relapsing if you are relapsing, and it may indicate possibly that this anxiety management program is not suitable for you at this time. So again, consulting with your GP around what is best for you. So you may need to adapt your anxiety management methods to adapt your changing needs. Okay. So next, we're going to look at what's called the gains form. So again, this will be a handout that can be sent to you, or if you're listening or watching this, you can in your journal write up a gains form. Basically has 2 columns. So in column 1, you could write up, not learning to cope with my anxiety means, and then write down, what does that mean for you? And in the second column, you could write down, learning to cope with my anxiety will enable me to, and then write down all the things that it would enable you to do. Okay, so we move on then to becoming aware that there is a problem. So problems can show themselves in a variety of ways. So if we're looking at our emotions or our feelings, some of the really strong ones that we might experience would be anger, frustration, anxiety, stress, depression, agitation, lack of self-esteem, feeling of life being wasted, lack of control of our lives. So frequently you may experience discomfort but remain unaware of what the problem is or what it is you want or need. So you may feel anxious or stressed, but you may be unaware of what's causing this anxiety. So it could be a variety of things. Again, through your journaling, you may be able to identify better what they are. So just some examples might be arguing with family or colleagues or friends, a shortage of money, being late for appointments or for things that you need to do, It could be as simple as what to cook for dinner. It could be disagreements with your partner, or lack of company, feeling isolated or alone, or how you're going to get somewhere or get something done, or how you need to impress somebody. So again, this is for you to write about and discover in your journal. So when you become aware that there is a problem, what can you do? So you can take positive steps to solve the problems you encounter. So again, you could write these up in your journal, the following steps. Breaking things down into manageable steps is always advisable. So step 1 could be recognize that there's a problem and state what it is. What is the problem? So step 2, very important, will be to restate the problem in a way that leads to positive action. So in a positive way, what you're going to do about it. Step 3 is accepting responsibility for the problem. How am I responsible for this problem? Step 4, think about actions which will solve the problem. So if I do this, then this can solve the problem. Step 5, choose a solution or a combination of solutions. Step 6, working out a step-by-step action plan. Step 7, putting the plan into action. And step 8, evaluating and adjusting the plan as necessary as the action plan progresses. Okay, so some blocks then to problem solving. So some of the blocks that might occur for you. So before working through the steps, it's helpful to look at some blocks to problem solving. Many of the blocks prevent you from seeing what the problem is and how you can solve it. So it may be an inability to recognize or acknowledge the problem. It may be lack of training and knowledge in being able to define problems. It may be not taking responsibility for the problem, or having a set of rules of thinking about things. Yeah? It may be difficulty in deciding from alternative choices which is the right action or choice to take. It may be an inability to work out an achievable step-by-step plan. It may be an inability to take action even when a plan has been worked out. And finally, it may be an inability to learn from the experience and take corrective action. So, once again, your steps to problem solving, very similar to the previous handout, would be step 1, recognize that there's a problem, state what it is. Step 2, restate the problem in a solvable way, leads to action. Step 3, who is responsible? Accept responsibility. Step 4, action that will solve the problem. And step 5, choosing solutions. Step 6, working a step-by-step action plan. Step 7, taking action, where, when, how long each step will take. And finally, evaluating and adjusting the plan as needed. Okay, so we're going to look now at so that's the end of the session. There is one more form, which is a decisions form, and that's where you make a statement. So again, in your journal, you can write down the statement of a decision to be made, what your long-term goal is and what your short-term goal is. And you can rate those between 1 and 10. So that's the final form that would be in the handouts. If you contact their service, I can arrange for those to be sent out to you. So the best of luck in your sessions, and I look forward to seeing you in session 4. Take care.